Good. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. This is part 3 with Dr. Danenberg. Just in case you didn't see part 1 and part 2, I sure hope you did. It's amazing. I mean, this is a doctor that was given 3 to 6 months to live as a diagnosis, and now it's 4 or 5 years later. So I just find him so fascinating. I just think he's going to save so many lives, including his own. But let me read a little bit about Dr. Danenberg in case you missed part 1 and part 2. He's here today to explain how he saved his own life after a September 2018 incurable bone cancer. Like I said, his diagnosis was 3 to 6 months to live. And look at him. He's here and he's healthy and thriving. So I invited this amazing human being, Dr. Al Danenberg, because I wanted him to share his life tips. The main reason is I had anxiety. I wasn't doing well. One of my children had gut issues. And I feel there's 2 ways to go. You can either go into plant-based and veganism and not sacrifice any animals, or you can start eating some animal products and animal organs, and possibly there's another journey to be on, and that's the journey that Dr. Danenberg took. So the last thing I want to say was Dr. Danenberg goes by Dr. Al. He's a periodontist. He was in private practice for 44 years. He incorporated ancestral nutrition and lifestyle with his leading edge laser protocol to treat periodontal disease. So I want to get a little bit more into Dr. Danenberg, but he was finishing information about wheat and how it affects us. But then I also want to ask more about the mouth. Do we need to floss? Do we need to brush? Or can we change the way we're eating and not have to worry so much about that? And I want to ask you about mouthwash. So if you can finish a little more about wheat eating, because for me personally, it does affect my gut and cause bloating, wheat and wheat products, and it was affecting my family as well. We don't completely cut it out, but when we use it, we notice some bloating, we notice some problems in the bathroom. Can you tell us a little bit more about the gut and wheat, Dr. Danenberg?
Well, first of all, I would tell you to cut it out 100% and not even eat it a little bit. And there are a lot of reasons why you don't want to keep irritating your gut. It's just like if you had a splinter in your finger and you knew you had to take it out and you removed it, would you continue to take that splinter and stab the area where it came from so that you always had a constant wound? Now, that makes no sense at all. If you want to heal your finger, you have to remove the splinter. You can't keep sticking it in each week. If you want to remove irritants from your diet, like wheat and other gluten products and other grains and quite a number of other anti-nutrients in foods, you cannot or you should not be reintroducing them occasionally because it creates an irritant. Your body knows what that irritant is and it will react to it. Now, one of the nice things about the gut itself is that the epithelial barrier, for the most part, can heal and replace itself every 5 days or so. So the nice thing is if you were doing bad things to your gut, but tomorrow you started doing everything right, and I mean everything, of course, that's a big question. But if you were doing everything right, that would not affect your gut. In 5 to 7 days, you will have a new epithelial barrier, meaning that the damage that you created is gone, and the ability for your body to process good nutrients would be there. If you continue to irritate it every so often, you destroy that new epithelial barrier. And although those cells keep repairing themselves, you'll continue to leak stuff into the circulatory system that is cumulative and creates longer lasting problems. But if you can heal the gut epithelial barrier, you are on the right track to eventually get other stuff that's already been absorbed into your body that shouldn't be there to heal. So that's one point. I will mention this, and this is directly related to people that have chronic diseases. And when I talk about chronic diseases, I'm talking about any chronic diseases. There is a clinic in Budapest, Hungary, called the MEDICINA Clinic. The MEDICINA Clinic has been there for 12 years or so. And the doctors only treat severe chronic diseases and cancers of all types. And they put their patients on a strict animal-based diet. They call it a Paleolithic ketogenic diet. very strict. Their patients only eat animal-based foods, nose to tail, but they do not have any supplements and they do not use any prescribed medical drugs. These people, many of them get cured. Others go into remission. Some don't have the benefits of all the others. But this clinic reports some of these case findings in various medical papers that you can find on their website. The beautiful thing is they have a phenomenal success record. One of the most interesting cases that they've reported recently was a person, a 52-year-old man, I believe, who had glioblastoma. So glioblastoma is a very severe brain cancer that the mortality is significantly elevated, and people with glioblastoma die in months for the most part. So this patient theoretically had glioblastoma, as reported. They went through conventional oncology treatment. They had radiation, they had surgery, they had chemotherapy, and they went into remission for a few months. Then they went out of remission and had the same exacerbation of the glioblastoma. This patient decided not to treat it the same way. They went to the PALEO clinic and they treated him, as I mentioned, a very strict animal-based diet, no supplements, no medical prescribed drugs. Now he is over 4 years in remission from glioblastoma only because of the change in his diet. That's pretty impressive. And they do have a variety of other cases that they report of different types of different chronic diseases, like I mentioned, that are getting quite exciting and interesting results. So that is one of the resources I used when I created my unconventional cancer protocols and what I was going to do with my diet.
I really appreciate hearing that. I'll tell you a real quick story. My friend's husband died of glioblastoma multiform. Is that what it's called?
Correct.
Basically very dangerous brain cancer. And one thing I noticed with the 2 other people I knew who had this cancer, didn't know them well, 3 people, they're typically male and they come from abuse, getting hit, punched, I don't know if the head or where, but I thought that was strange. That's only 3 people in my life, but she had said, the wife of this gentleman who died about a year or 2 ago, that they noticed that as well, that there's this strange pattern with the GM patients. But I wanted to transition into your book, the one that I read, Is Your Gut Killing You? I noticed you called the microbiome, the gut microbiome, a garden. And it reminded me that our garden needs to be tended to. And in the dirt of the garden, if those of us who are blessed to, not necessarily just be in an apartment, but we might have a little bit of land on the balcony of our apartment or of our home, we need worms and bugs and rats and mosquitoes and coyotes and rabbits. We need all these things. And it seems like if you're tending to your garden, if we're just being plant-based, we are perhaps extracting some vital nutrients and vital gut microbes that we need in our gut, that perhaps a plant-based diet, but you're more of the expert, of course, because you've been through so much and you're a doctor. I'd love to talk about that. The other thing I wanted to point out is I've also listened to not just doctors like yourself, but farmers. And the farmers will say that, hey, let's say across the street is the kale and strawberry farm, and I as a farmer have sheep and goat and cow. Typically, we have more of a symbiotic relationship with the land. These animals are peeing and pooping there. We're using less water, and we still have squirrels and gophers and rats and mountain lions that can visit our property. Versus across the street, the kale and strawberry farm, they're tilling the soil. A lot of animals are killed or displaced. So really, when we're saying meat eating kills animals, well, so does plant eating, because all of a sudden, so much is gone from that biome. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the gut microbiome, that diversity. If someone is just plant-based, can they have a proper gut microbiome and a properly working mind, good working skin, good working teeth and gut, or do we need to add some meat into our diet?
Well, basically, what I said still holds. Our species has evolved with certain nutrients that are only available in an animal-based diet, eating it from nose to tail, because many nutrients are in the organs. So if you're only eating meat and not the organs and the animal fat, you're not having the healthy nutrition that you need. So this garden of bacteria is fed by good nutrients, and it's not damaged by other chemicals called anti-nutrients. And these anti-nutrients are sometimes chemicals in the plants that the plants literally produce to ward off predators, so they're not eaten. You know, plants can't run away from their predators, and they want to have their seeds to produce new plants. They want to live just like humans and animals want to live. So plants have chemicals that may ward off predators so that they can create the seeds that need to be generated so that their plant will propagate from generation to generation, correct? So these chemicals are irritating to plant animals, and many of them are very irritating to our gut and damages our gut microbiome. So a lot of plants that have these chemicals that accumulate in our gut are harming our garden of bacteria. Our garden of bacteria are made up of maybe 38 trillion cells. The human body is only made up of 30 trillion human cells. That means we are more microbial than human. So this garden of bacteria is huge. And when we feed it, and we feed it with nutrients that it needs, there are many different species of bacteria, which is known as a diverse gut microbiome. There is a medical term called alpha diversity, and that alpha diversity means that it identifies how many different species of bacteria you have. So if you have a higher alpha diversity, you have many more species of bacteria than someone with a low alpha diversity. And what does that mean? Well, when there's a high alpha diversity, there are many different species of bacteria. These many species of bacteria can crowd out potentially pathogenic or harmful bacteria, so it prevents the proliferation of disease. So the more diversity your gut microbiome, the healthier you are. And to get more diversity, you need the nutrients for these bacteria to grow in number and species without being irritated or damaged by these chemicals called anti-nutrients that may be in some plants, and of course other things that are damaging to the gut microbiome.
I just love everything you have to say. I appreciate your book so much. I wish we had more time, but I don't want to take up more of your time because we've gone on a long time today, Dr. Danenberg, and I appreciate you so much. My prayer and my blessing for all of you is that you share this with as many people as possible, because I really see Dr. Danenberg as helping one gut and one healthy brain at a time, just person by person, who's so blessed and so lucky to hear Dr. Danenberg, find Dr. Danenberg, his interviews, his books, his website. And I just want to thank him. And if we ever do a part 4, I'd love to talk about the mouth, that the way we change our eating. I noticed when I was more vegan, and more of my vegan and vegetarian friends do have more problems in their mouth. So I'd love to talk about that one day, how eating affects your mouth, affects your gut, your whole body, your whole system. So anything else we should end on, Dr. Danenberg? Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I will tell you certainly what you're mentioning about the mouth.
Oh, thank
The
you.
gut microbiome has everything to do with the mouth. And the mouth, certainly, if it's not healthy, can spread infection throughout the entire blood system, just like an unhealthy gut. So if you have an unhealthy gut and you have an unhealthy mouth, you must treat the gut and you must treat the mouth appropriately. And to make sure that you have a healthy mouth, I have a little PDF called 4 Steps to a Healthy Mouth that anybody could certainly download, or we can send it to them. You could put it in the show notes. It's not a problem. But basically, you need to brush correctly. You need to brush at the gum line. You need to clean between the teeth. Maybe dental floss to remove any fibrous foods from the contact, but clean where the gum meets the tooth between the teeth with a little what's called an interdental cleaning device. The specific one that I like is called the TEPE or TEPE Easy Pick, TEPE Easy Pick, and then clean the surface of your tongue with maybe a spoon, because the tongue will harbor a lot of anaerobic bacteria, which is where 80% of bad breath comes from. If you clean it correctly with a spoon, once in the morning, once in the evening, you can prevent those issues that emanate from the surface of the tongue. And I describe that even with pictures in that little PDF. But correct the problems in your mouth by cleaning your mouth correctly. Toothpaste is not critical, but if you want a toothpaste to use, you want one that doesn't have any antimicrobial compounds that kill the bacteria, because we want a healthy garden of bacteria. One of the toothpaste that I like is called REVITIN, REVITIN. You can get it online. They have a site, revitin.com. You can buy it on Amazon. If you want a toothpaste, you don't have to have a toothpaste to clean your mouth correctly. And there are certain things that I have that little PDF called 4 Steps to a Healthy Mouth to give you some pointers as to what to do to make sure it stays healthy.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Sorry, we both had a little bit of technical audio and video issues, but you got all of it, I think. It's just a little delay. So thank you, Dr. Danenberg. I'll put everything in the show notes down below. Just click the description. You can find Dr. Danenberg. You can find me. And I appreciate you so much. It's just amazing. Everything you talked about is so mind-blowing and so up to date on health. I think you've dispelled a lot of myths that we've been holding on to since the 60s and the 80s, and you've destroyed them. So thank you for being here to help us be healthier and help us understand there is hope for our mind, our body, and our gut.
Absolutely. And thanks for the opportunity.